Perfect. Then, yeah, thank you very much again for having me here to give a workshop on digital tools for data collection and analysis. So it is a bit a different topic than the very interesting talk that we heard quite now. Now we are more kind of zooming out of specific research topics, but getting on a larger meta level, so to say, to understand what exactly is digital data and what kind of tools do exist that we as researchers can use and apply to understand our data, so that yeah, maybe we try to listen to the data that are at hand and that we can analyze. The main content that I'm presenting here is not only from my knowledge. There is a lot of my knowledge in this presentation, but it's also based on a course from Barbara Ähnlich from the Data Literacy Center at Jena. They give workshops similar to this at the University of Jena to increase data literacy in students, researchers, employees. And I understand myself as adding some knowledge that I have in order to multiplicate the knowledge to a broader audience. So the agenda today, in order to talk, to listen to the data we see and hear so that we can talk maybe with our data together, is that we first will have a short welcome and check-in to understand who am I and why am I giving this workshop. Then to have a very short introduction to put us all on the same page. What do we mean when we say the term data, and especially digital data? And then I'm going to go along the data life cycle, so to say, that has 4 parts. The first one is data collection. So that's the part where we get our data, obtain our data, or find sources for data that already exists. Then we, in the most cases, have to prepare our data, refine, clean our data so that we can analyze our data. And on top of the data analysis part, there comes an important part that is called data visualization, because we don't need to only understand, find data, prepare and analyze it, but also visualize it so that our results, our interpretation can be shared with the audiences we want to present our results to. We will then have a short exercise. So there you can try out some tools that I'm going to present you. And then we're going to have a short wrap up and check out of the workshop. Okay, starting with the welcome. So that's now the part I already mentioned. So who am I and why am I giving a workshop on digital tools? I studied quite a while ago a master's degree in media studies, philosophy and psychology, and with a focus on media economist. So that brought me to a job from 2011 until 2015, where I worked as an employee in a newspaper publishing house, where I was responsible for internal communication, human resource and organizational development and market research. So one can see already that I'm coming from a very quantitative side of data analysis and statistics. Then I did my PhD from 2016 until last year in behavioral economics. So digging even more deeper into quantitative data analysis and statistics. And since January last year, I'm research associate postdoc at the Department of Intercultural Studies. And also in my research and work, I'm very fascinated by statistics and quantitative data analysis. I'm also doing this in my free time. So I'm a volunteer at the Coral Aid organization, which is a non-partisan, non-profit network of data science enthusiasts. That's what we call ourselves, where we have local chapters in different regions of Germany, and where we conduct and do data for good projects, for instance, for NGOs who have a lot of data, but do not have the expertise in order to understand and analyze their data. What is the goal of our workshop here today? So I hope that at the end of this workshop, you will have first learned and that we talked about what digital data is. Second, that you learned about some digital tools for data collection, preparation, analysis, and visualization, that you had time to try it out, one or more digital tools by yourself, and maybe that we can get into a short discussion on advantages and disadvantages and potentials for your research topics, and that if there wasn't the right tool in the workshop presentation yet, that you have an overview and have some links on where you can find further information on the topic of digital data and also to find further tools. Starting with the question, with the first question, so what exactly is digital data? Before we can answer the question, what is digital data, we have to start with the question, what in general is research data? And there is no uniform definition of what data is and what it is not. It is, in most cases, discipline specific, but an approximation to understand what digital data or what research data is that research data in general are documents in digital or analog form other than scientific publications, which are collected or produced in the course of scientific research activities. So if you want to sum it up in a nutshell, research data is kind of the basis that we need to do empirical research in order to answer research questions, in order to investigate phenomena in the real world that we want to explain with quantitative or qualitative data. The Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft mentions some kinds of research data. So for instance, what we understand as researchers under data are measured values in any kind of what you can think about what can be measured. For instance, laboratory results, which is especially important in the sciences, so also the humanities, but for instance, biologists, physicists, and so on, they go to the laboratory, run their experiments, and then collect laboratory data. More in the humanities and social sciences, for instance, survey data in order to better understand attitudes, opinions, and behavior of people, but also audiovisual information like audio or video files, texts, which is mainly important in humanities, for instance, in linguistics, but also objects from a collection or samples. And to get a feeling for me, but also to have a start on exchange within the audience, I would like to invite you to share with us what is your data, what is your digital data. I prepared an online kind of survey on menti.com with 2 questions. So I would like to invite you to go to menti.com and to enter the code 5224193. And I first invite you to share with us what kind of digital data you currently work with, or which data you plan to work with. And on the second slide, then I would like to share with us which kind of digital tools for data collection and analysis you already know. Okay, I just leave the screen open and would then share my screen with the results with you afterwards if we have some data collected. Does that work for everybody on the menti.com platform? So I already see some results, so I guess it's working. Oh, perfect. That looks beautiful. I hope that everybody of you has got the Menti code ready. Otherwise, I'm going to type it into the chats. And then I'm going to switch the screen I share. so that you can also see the interesting results we found. Okay, yeah, thank you very much for your participation. I hope you can now see the screen with the results for the first question. What digital data do you currently work with or plan to work with? Do you see it? I would be happy if...
Yes, we see it.
You see it. Okay, perfectly. So that's a very interesting and a broad range of data. I can read qualitative data. And it is quite large, so that probably means that more than one person typed in qualitative data. I see video and audio files, Zoom meeting videos, audio online surveys, film lines, tweets, objects and programs, Twitter data, team interaction recordings. Okay, so qualitative data, interviews, online surveys, but also a lot of audio-visual files, text, online corpus, recorded interviews, language, corporate text, social media posts. That's probably also similar to similar kind of data than tweets, online questionnaires and process data. Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm going to include also the results of this slide into the final presentation so that we have an overview. If it would be okay, I would like to ask back. I think I've read process data. So can somebody who wrote this explain what he or she means with process data so that everybody of us gets an understanding?
Yes, it was me who typed that in. My name is Stephen Nitsch, and I'm working at the University of Jena within the division that supports students. And we are undertaking a project analyzing process data from IT systems, mainly from the campus management system. Mm-hmm. And that's why I typed in process data. Okay, so this is what can you give an example? What kind of data that is? Well, a few words on the project then. It is called Academic Success Monitoring, and maybe that explains a bit of it. So we are monitoring the study courses of students in order to support them and to prevent dropout. That is the main goal of the project. Okay. And so we analyze whatever the campus management system generates, and it generates a lot of data. Okay, that's interesting. So then we are probably on the data continuum, also on the big data side of it, which is, to say it, the kind of the opposite of qualitative data. Here we have few data, but with a higher, so to say, fine-grained insights, and big data are a lot of data and mainly quantitative data. I think I hope that for the data you work with currently or plan to work with, I have some tools that you might already know, but also some new tools to dig deeper insight and to better listen to your data. I'm also trying to share with you the second slide. Have you, maybe now a question, have you only entered and typed in the kind of data you used, or did you also already typed in which digital tools for data collection and analysis you already know? Do you have on menti.com an opportunity to now type in?
Elisa, nothing is uploaded as a new, let's say, slide to give our answer at Menti.
Ah, okay. So you cannot, you don't see a second.
Yeah, it says the slide has no change. Wait for the presenter to show the next slide.
Okay. Then maybe I have to switch forward, but I'm not sure how to do that actually.
Herr Bolton, maybe you know?
Okay, so if this is
Elisa, now it works.
Yeah. Now it works? Okay.
For me, yes, thank you.
Perfect, thanks for the feedback. Okay, thank you very much. I think some of you are still typing. Some of you already typed in the tools they already know or use for data collection and analysis. I see a lot of Excel, SPSS, some using R or Python tools, so more programming languages. I also see, I think Interact is software for analyzing videos, but I also see tools for analyzing, for instance, texts or interviews. Atlas TI, MaxQDA and AntConc are mainly software tools for analyzing, or for instance, for conducting qualitative content analysis and so on. Okay, so that's a very broad range already of tools. I think I still have some more for you on the next slides. Perfect, thank you very much. I now try to share my presentation screen again. Okay, perfect. I hope you now still see the slide, what is your digital data? Thank you very much again for letting me know. And also the others know, to get a feeling, so who of you is working with what kind of data. So now we are getting to the next step, to getting to know some digital tools for data analysis and collection. So first of all, I would like to take you with me to kind of a mindset journey in order to better be on the same page. What kind of tools should I use, and what kind of for what kind of reason should I use what? So I mean, basically, if you want to find the right tool, you first should know, I think you already have know that already quite well, of course, what kind of data in which format you want to collect, and in which format is the data available. And after you got to know that, of course, you have to figure out whether you still have to prepare your data before you can analyze it. That's a very underestimated part of the process in empirical research, that in general, often we can't only take data from a specific source and directly run into the analysis. Before that, we have to prepare the data for our analysis. That we need to take into account what kind of questions can I answer with my data, and how do I want to answer these questions, because not all tools can be used to answer all kind of research questions. And in the fourth step, to think about how can I summarize and visualize my results. So I would like to invite you to keep that in mind when we also come to the exercise session, that you think about whether you can answer your questions you have with the collected data and using the specific tools. A short overview, I won't get into it in such a detail. What kind of data do we have in general? And we can divide it here in primary data and secondary data. So primary data are all kind of data that you as researcher collect for the first time. For instance, surveys or interviews, or also laboratory results. So those are data that are not existing before you collect them. And this can be a very broad range of analog and digital data, for instance, photos, but also texts from books, newspapers, or letters. It can be audio and video files, also in analog and digital format. And depending on the format, you need different tools in order to analyze them. It can be for surveys, either the classical analog pencil and paper questionnaires. It can be online surveys, which has the advantage that you have already the data in a digital format in order to analyze it. But it can also be content from the World Wide Web, for instance, tweets that we saw before from Twitter or social media data. If you do not want, or if you cannot collect the data for yourself because it is too time consuming, or it is just impossible because you want to have historical data, then you might use secondary data. Secondary data is all the kind of data that already exists before you start your research, but that you can use to investigate specific research questions. I brought along a couple of digital archives for specific kind of secondary data, depending on what kind of research question you have. So there is, for instance, in Germany, a digital archive of non-governmental archives. So it's an archive for archives as one source of finding more data. There are, for instance, digitized address books, calendars, newspapers, and magazines. So this is more into the historical kind of data, mainly used by either linguists or also historians. There is, for instance, the digitized cultural and knowledge treasures of Thuringia, for instance, with many documents from the Bauhaus library. There is another source that is called Digital Holdings of the Tulp, which is also a collection of collections where you can just try to search and find for specific data you're looking for. There is, for instance, one digital source on legislation in Thuringia, so coming from a more regional data where you can, for instance, answer the research question whether gender language was already used in the early 20th century in Thuringian law. And you would find, yes, it has been the case. So in Thuringian law already in 1930, 1940, there was the term used Lehrer, brackets innen. So it was not the Binnen-I, and it was sometimes called Lehrer and Lehrerinnen, but already this Lehrer brackets innen, closing brackets, was already used in Thuringian law documents at the beginning of the 20th century. And there is also, maybe for people of you who are more interested in digital cultural heritage of Europe, the Europeana archive, which is a large collection of pictures of other kind of documents, and it tries to summarize the digital cultural heritage of Europe. Coming to corpora, I think I read it also in the what kind of data you use or you plan to work with. There are a lot of corpora archives that you can obtain. For instance, the corpora at the archive for spoken German, or the German text archive, which focuses on German language texts from 1600 until 1900. And then I brought you along 3 more databases. So databases where you can look up specific archives for specific corpora that you might find interesting. And for those of you who are not so familiar with the term corpus and corpora, in general, a corpus is a collection of linguistic data. So it is mainly used in the field of linguistics to, for instance, investigate how language developed over time, or compared how language developed in specific regions. Coming now to 2 tools for data preparation. So you have your data, you either collected it on yourself, or you got the data from a specific archive or a specific corpus tool. Then I brought along two tools for data preparation. The first one is called QualiAnon. It is still in the work in progress phase, but you can register in order to use this tool. What it does is that it helps you, if you, for instance, collected interviews with people, it helps you to pseudonymize and anonymize interview and text data. So the process where you know exactly who your interview person was, in order to use it for research, you need to anonymize and pseudonymize, and QualiAnon is one tool that helps you to go through this process. A second tool, I mean, of course, the one of you who use R, Python, SPSS, or Excel can, of course, also do it there. Another tool, a web-based tool for data preparation is OpenRefine. OpenRefine is a tool that helps you to standardize abbreviations, that harmonizes upper and lower cases of the data you have, and it can also recognize and delete duplicates. And I think I see some of you already writing. I'm giving you the presentation I'm sharing with you before we are starting the exercise, so that you can also have the links and just click on the tools I'm going to show you. And I'm also going to send you the presentation after the workshop into the ReDICo cloud. Are there, before we are coming on the next slide, to some tools for data analysis already first questions here for the first part of data collection and data preparation? I'm not sure whether I can see all of you by video, so I would just invite you to just unmute yourself if there is any question. Okay, I don't think that this is the case yet. Then I am going to continue. In case there is coming something up, then just unmute yourself and ask. Coming to some tools for data analysis, I split up the tools a bit into the kind of data you might want to analyze. So I have two slides for texts as data. One tool I want to show you is the so-called Voyant tools, which is a web-based website, a web page where you can upload, or I mean, you can also use some kind of data they have, but you can also upload your, for instance, PDFs, interviews, whatever kind of text you want to analyze. And Voyant tools then analyzes you. It counts, for instance, the number of words, how often is which word provided. It provides you and creates such a nice word cloud. And you can also like count the amount, for instance, of words that is used. And you can, in some cases, also see what words are connected and are used together very often. So it's a basic tool in order to better understand and have a first insight into your texts. There are, of course, some classical annotation, coding, and evaluation tools. I think MaxQDA and Atlas.te were already mentioned. So these are the most common tools for qualitative analysis of interviews and texts. The euro sign before the tool always means that it comes along with license fees. So in general, those software tools cost you something. For MaxQDA, there is a new service from the Friedrich University of Jena, so that every employee student can use MaxQDA for free. So this is quite new. I thought I just share this here for all the people who haven't heard it yet, because it is a very common tool that is used by a lot of researchers and students, also for writing, the thesis of the students, because it can be a struggle to give them a license if you don't have the money to provide so many licenses. But there are also open source software. So these are always the softwares that I show here without a euro sign. That means in general, they are open source that you can use for free. And I always try to give both opportunities, because I know that if you are in a higher education organization, usually you can use a lot of tools, but if you get outside of it, usually you don't have access anymore to those costly software. So maybe it is worth thinking about already using open source software now in order to take the data, the scripts you have with you. Yeah, one tool that I can show you for a qualitative content analysis is, for instance, QCA Map, but also the programming softwares R and Python, so to say, all rounders when it comes along to empirical data analysis, and visualization also can be used for text analysis. A second tool that a colleague of mine talked to me and mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago is called Orange. Orange is a Python-based data mining tool for text analysis, for instance, for tweets, for social media data, and so on. It can be used to analyze the data on a more fine-grained version, so to get insights on what the data is. But if you want to dig deeper into machine learning approaches, sentiment analysis, and so on, this tool also can help you to run those kind of analysis. It's an open source software program that you can download, and then it is, so I tried it. It is kind of really easy to use. It is kind of a drag and drop system where you can enter the file you want to analyze, and then you can choose what kind of text analysis you want to run, and then you get the results. And the good thing about Orange is that it also comes along with many tutorials on YouTube where you can just exercise and learn yourself on how to use the tool. Maybe that's interesting for those of you who don't want to learn a programming language like R and Python, but still want to do some machine learning analysis with the text. Then maybe Orange might be a tool that you can use. I think I see a hand. So yeah, Martina, oh, no, you're gone. So just unmute and ask.
Yeah. Yeah, hi. I went to a workshop for Orange, and just a warning, if you want to use an Orange, you have to run it on Python. And the people that are not really fit, that do not basically program, it can be a challenge really to make it work. So maybe so that the people are not disappointed, it's a good tool, but really first you have to install Python or have it installed. Maybe it's the best way to talk to somebody who can help you with the installation. Just as a remark.
That's true. Thank you very much for this very good advice. Because that shouldn't happen, that you cannot use a tool just because you don't have Python installed. And that's true. To install Python can be a nightmare on Windows and on Mac, because you need to know where to install it and how to use the software. But yeah, so thanks for the advice. So if you want to use any kind of Python-based tool, get some advice at the beginning of installation of Python so that it runs smoothly. So sometimes it can take longer to install Python than to use the software that comes along. So yeah, thanks very much. Okay, we are continuing with some tools for the data analysis of corpora, so of those collections of linguistic data. There is, for instance, ANIS, it is called. It is a web-based corpus annotation tool, or a tool that is called just corpus tool. I already read that some of you or one of you is already using EndConc, which is also a very common tool for corpus analysis and annotation. And yeah, as you can see, I provided you the links for all the tools I mentioned here so that you just have to click on it in order to figure out how to get it. When it comes to videos as your source of data, digital data, there are 3 very common softwares in order to analyze data. You see again, there are always euro signs in front of the tools, so be aware that can be quite costly if you don't own them yet. But they are very powerful in order to analyze, annotate the videos you have. The 2 most common ones are Interact from the company Mangold and the software, the Observer XT from the company Noldus. I know that with MaxQDA, you can also analyze and annotate videos, but of course, as MaxQDA is more an all-rounder of analyzing texts and videos, the functions are less sophisticated than they are in the specific video analysis tools, Interact and Observer. There are also 3 open source alternatives that all come along with, so not all tools all have the same functionalities, but they are still used by many researchers who don't want to or who don't have the access to the paid versions. I know that, for instance, the communication analysis tool, but also Anvil and Boris were developed by researchers themselves in order to create alternatives to the paid versions, which also can be developed further by researchers who want to use it. On the next slide, we are coming already to the topic of, before we come there, we come first to kind of survey data. For those of you who use, for instance, online surveys, some providers and some tools already have integrated analysis options in their tools. So for basic analysis, descriptive analysis, and so on, specific charts, you don't need a specific further tool to analyze the survey data you get. But in most cases, you want to maybe run statistical analysis, correlations, descriptive analysis, and so on. And in case you have the data separately, so as Excel file, CVS file, or as SPSS file, of course, you can analyze the data in Excel. Some of you already use that. Excel also has advantages and disadvantages. Excel can be quite powerful in creating simple tables, overviews, in collecting data and manage data, and also in visualize data, so to create tables. But if you want to also understand the process of your analysis, so if you change one value in Excel, you don't know in an hour or in a month or in a year where your data comes from and where it changed. So if you rather want to process the development of your data analysis, it's better to use another tool, for instance, statistical software like Stata or SPSS, where you can write scripts in order to, for your own understanding, track the process of your data analysis, but also to share the process of data analysis for quantitative data or for survey data. And if you want to have an open source alternatives, again, there is, I think, in mainly social sciences, humanities, but also in other fields, currently a change from, for instance, SPSS as main quantitative analysis tool to further open source alternatives like R and RStudio, or also to Python. Yeah, but here again comes along with maybe the danger of having difficulties in installing Python and PyCharm. R and RStudio are rather easy to install, but you need to have at least a bit of interest in kind of a programming language, because those tools, R, RStudio, and Python, have their own programming language in order to analyze your data. The big advantage is that whenever you have a script or whenever you want to analyze something, you can exchange those kind of scripts with other researchers. So for instance, when you have a new kind of analysis you want to use, or a new kind of method, then usually there is somebody else who programmed a script using his or her data, and then they can share the script with you. There's also a large community on for instance, on GitHub, where people share their scripts, share their data analysis scripts, which you can use, individualize, and then use for your data. That is the big advantage of those kind of tools. The last slide I brought you along is for bibliometric data, some tools for data analysis. This are basically tools where you do not use your own data, but you can use those tools in order to get a better understanding of what kind of research has already been published, how are words used, and what kind of words have been used, for instance, in books. So the Digitales Wörterbuch der deutschen Sprache, for instance, which you can see here on the left side, there you can, for instance, type in a word like diversity, and then this tool gives you a graph, and it counts how often this word is used in a specific corpora of German newspapers in specific years. Here, for instance, you can answer questions like, when occurred the word diversity in German newspapers for the first time? You can, for instance, look at how the usage of the word develops over the past century, to get a feeling and an insight of the usage of the words. Google Ngram Viewer is something similar, but here the database you use is not based on newspaper articles, but on books. So you can choose books in various languages, French, German, Spanish, English-speaking books, and it shows you, for instance, for two words, how often they occurred, and also in what kind of relation they belong to each other. I, for instance, brought you along the chart for the word intercultural competence and global competence, which are not the same, but have similar usage and similar ingredients. And you can see that intercultural competence is way of more used than, for instance, global competence as key term in English speaking books from 1800 until 2019. And the tool on the right slide, which you can also use for yourself in order for literature review, but you can also give it as advice to your students, is called Connected Papers, where you can enter, for instance, one paper, one specific title, and then this tool shows you how is this specific paper connected with similar papers. So it's kind of a network graph that shows you what papers belong to each other, where are maybe specific specific people of researchers who research on similar topics and who cite each other regularly. And now 2 more slides on tools for data visualization, because before we come to the hands-on part. Data visualization, so to say, is not so important in order to understand your own data. Sometimes it does. So sometimes you can see in a graph exactly how your data behaves. But it also is important to also present and communicate the results of your research to others, to the research community, but of course also to other audiences. I brought you along 2 tools where you can create graphs and graphics with your own data. So those are tools that help you to visualize your own data if you do not want to use R, SPSS, or MaxQDA. The hint here is to clean up the data set beforehand. So before you upload or enter your data there, you want to have in the graphic, because otherwise you will have your data set of maybe 500 variables, and then it can be quite difficult in order to choose what kind of variable you want to have shown in the graph. I brought you along 2 of them. One is raw graphs and one is data wrapper. And what these tools do is that you can upload your the data you have, and then you can just choose what kind of variables you want to have presented in which kind of way. So as a pie chart, as box plot, as bar chart, or as any other kind of fancy charts that they provide for you. On the right-hand side, I brought you along, for those who have might be more interested in the topic of data visualization, the so-called data viz catalog. So here you cannot use your own data to upload it, but this website shows you and can give you an inspiration on what kind of opportunities, what kind of graphs do exist to present existing data. Of course, if you want to use it, then you always have to think, do I have the data in the right format to provide this graph? For instance, if you have just qualitative text data, you cannot produce a bar chart because qualitative data is not being counted. But as soon as you counted, for instance, quantities of words, of specific phrases, then you can use, for instance, bar charts, pie charts, and so on. What I also brought you along as an inspiration is a website that gives you, or that shows you 45 ways to communicate 2 quantities. So the website is just about 2 quantities, and it shows you some inspirations on how you can present those 2 quantities. For instance, 30% male, 70% female researchers or students. There are many opportunities to visualize this information. But also I brought you along a website which takes into account that colors, so if you use graphs with colors, that colors, depending on the culture and the region you are in the world, can have completely different meanings and completely different connotations. And the graph, which you can see here in the bottom right side, is a bit of a support, advice, and information on what kind of color has what kind of meaning in what kind of region in the world. 2 further tools for data visualization, maybe interesting for some of you, maybe also some tools for those of you who have not thought about analyzing their data yet in that kind of way. On the left-hand side, you can see the tool Timeline Nightlab, where you can provide a time history for a specific process. So it is you don't have to kind of upload an Excel sheet or so what, but this tool helps you to create a timeline that can be clicked through in order to show development over a specific time course. And on the right-hand side, the tool Daria Geo Browser can help you in order to visualize geographical data. So for instance, when you have data on specific words, specific actions, specific events that happened, and you want to show this on a world map, for instance, then you can use the Daria Geo Browser in order to visualize your data on a map. Okay, the next slide already takes us into the 4th step, where you can now, after you read and heard about all those nice and interesting tools, have the opportunity to try them out on yourself and to get into a discussion on potential advantages and disadvantages. But before we do that, I first just want to ask into the round whether there are any questions, comments up to this point in time. I hope I don't oversee anybody, but I don't see anybody unmuting or
Could you please, Elisa, repeat, because I lost the last part of your speech.
It was just the room here for questions. So for questions and comments on the tools I just presented, because in the next part we are going into an exercise session.
I send you a comment, Nectaria. I can't uncapture the camera. You see that it is at WebEx because I'm at the same time at WebEx. So I think I sent the message maybe directly to you, but earlier I have sent a comment saying that it's very useful, all this data collection you presented today, especially, you know, in terms of that it is very current, very recent, it includes everything. I just made a comment that you could also include SodaNet. SodaNet, you know, it's the new process for archivization of the collection for social sciences. This is the one we are using now, the universities.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Earlier, it's in order to enrich your here list, which is really marvelous and excellent. It's a lot of work. I'm doing something like that with my students as director to find all the lists for data collection process, archivization, and using the tools for quantitative and qualitative studies. So I would like to get in touch with you. Excellent.
Thank you very much. I think if you wrote it in the chat, I wasn't aware of what has been written in the chat, but I'm going maybe to read it now while you can exercise on yourself, and then I try to reply. But thank you very much. I didn't know SodaNet yet, but sure, I like to include it in the presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so then we are not done there yet. So now is the part where you have the time to try out one or more tools that I just have presented, maybe the ones you found more interesting or the ones that you heard already about. I know 10-15 minutes are a very short amount of time, but still I wanted to give you the opportunity to try it out and share your experiences here with us. And while doing so, I would like to invite you to answer for yourself the following questions. What are the advantages maybe of the tool? What are the tool's weaknesses? And if you found some, for instance, with the orange tool, then let us know and share the knowledge with us, and maybe to also think about how you can use the specific tool for your research. And after you tried out the tools on yourself, I would like to invite you for having 15 minutes afterwards for a discussion here in the audience. And as I mentioned, you don't have to type everything and all the tools that I found. I would now just send you the PDF of my presentation into the Zoom chat so that you can just download it and click on the tools that you maybe want to look at, want to exercise. And I'm still here in the room for any questions and comments. Okay. Okay.
Elisa?
Yes, I'm just trying to find the PDF and to upload it.
Cool,
So,
because otherwise it's difficult to...
Yeah, so there we go. It should now occur in the chat.
Great, thank you very much.
Perfect. And yeah, so the invitation is to choose any tool from the very broad list I talked about in
το
the...
όνομά της και θα το ελέγξω αργά το απόγευμα.
Okay, everything fine.
Does it work? Did you found the presentation and can you download and open it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Then I would say it's now 12:30. Let's say
we meet again here at, we stay here. So we start the discussion at 12:40. And my suggestion would be, most of you have their camera still switched off, that we maybe keep camera switched off while you are exploring the tools, but in case you are ready. So if we are approaching 12:40, that I would like to invite you just to switch on your camera and that we can get into the discussion part. Okay, perfect. Then have fun.
Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm Vlasis from ReDICo University. Thank you very much for this presentation. It's really useful for us as PhD candidates. Yeah, we will use a lot of these tools. Okay, I cannot find the presentation in the chat. Probably I missed something.
No, it's at the chat, Vlasis, on the right column. I can send it to you.
Thanks, Nectaria.
Vlasis is my PhD student, Elisa.
Okay.
That's why I wrote to you. It's a must.
Okay.
I told everybody now to join.
Yeah, nice to
They're
hear
very
you.
good. We are also doing as the field of priority intercultural education and global competency studies. That's why
Nice.
we have to get in touch.
Yeah. So, Vlasis, if you haven't found it yet, at the very bottom of the Zoom tool list, there is the button where you can unmute yourself, and a bit more to the right, there is a button which is labeled chat. And if you click on that, you should find the PDF there. I hope that works.
I can see everything in the chat except for that. Okay, I will turn it off and I will come the Zoom again. Probably something that, yeah.
I just sent it again. Maybe it took a bit to upload. Watch, we have 12:42 in order to still have some time for exchange and discussion. I don't see so many cameras on yet. Now there are some more. Perfect. So I know it's very short, but I mean, if you get out of the conference in the evening or after the very interesting talks that you have tomorrow for the weekend, you can still, of course, exercise and look into the tools, but I would invite you that we just have a short discussion exchange on what kind of tool you used, but which was kind of maybe mind-blowing or which was super boring. That is also sometimes helpful to share with others in order to not use tools. Yes, so how was your experience? What kind of tools did you use? What did you experience?
Is it possible for most of the people to put the camera on? Like Alexandra, Tanasia, Nectaria said no. Constantina, Yolanda, Vlasis, Alexandra. That would be nice. Thank you. Martina.
So that I break the silence. I have tried, but I didn't get to publishing the results. I have tried the timeline tool, because currently I'm working with a colleague on there was an international dispute between the Czech Republic and Poland because there was a dispute over a mine that was disrupting the environment and was taking away the water from the parts in the Czech Republic. And then we went to a conference and I did some graphics in R, but I was wondering whether I can do something fancy with photos, and that is not that easy to program. So that was my motivation. And this timeline, it basically works with Google Sheets. You have to create a Google Sheet and then load the Google Sheet into the tool. And according to the tutorial, it should be very, very easy. But I just inserted the 4 categories I wanted to visualize and didn't get to the to publishing. But thanks for your recommendation.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much for sharing this experience. And yeah, fingers are crossed that you can finish it and maybe use it for the next presentation at a conference or project meeting. Nice, thank you very much. Did somebody else tried a tool, tried a website, and wants to share his or her experience with the others? Yes, Alexandra Funk.
Hi, so first of all, I'm sorry for not turning on my camera. It's like my internet is very bad, so I hope my internet won't kick me out of the meeting, because I'm having problems the whole time. It's like crazy. Nevertheless, I've tried Google Ngram Viewer just because I was very curious, and I hadn't heard about it before. And I really liked it. I think it is very interesting to get a general overview. Of course, I think it's not useful if you look for something very in detail, but to get an overview, it is a great tool. Nevertheless, I think one disadvantage is that it only shows results up to 2019, or maybe I didn't find the option where to look for literature up to 2020 or 21 even. But for example, I was looking for COVID and everything, and that just hasn't appeared, which is a pity. But in general, in my point of view, it can be very useful. Yeah, as I said, to get a general overview.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. Also a good hint. I also wasn't aware that it is not updated up to 2020 and 2021, but maybe there are so many more books that they still have to update their database. Yeah. Thanks. I think I see another hand. Nick, do you want to share your experience?
Yes, gladly. I'm sorry, I'm not able to turn the camera on. I hope you all can hear me. Elisa, I'll be looking at you. If I stop at a certain point and you don't hear me, then just raise your hand. So I tried out Voyant tools, and that was really interesting because I had the first impression pretty much similar to Alexandra Funk. I think it's a great tool to get an overview over your text, and it's a it's a quantitative tool, and you get an overview how many similar words are in there, and the word cloud was nice, and there's a lot of in-depth quantitative analysis. How many things that even tries to give you a correlation, what words follow after others and stuff. That was really interesting. But on the other hand, then I found it, you call it weakness here on your slide, but if there is, for example, a header on each page, then that is obviously going to be one of the main results, because it just keeps popping up on every page. And also, if you're yourself write a quantitative or have quantitative, well, I put in my master thesis, and there's obviously there are going to be some numbers. So one of the most used words was 0, and then 1, and then 2. That's kind of you need to look at the results and then filter out a little bit. But nevertheless, if you have a text and want to look at it with a certain research question and bear those limitations in mind, I think it's really great. And that's just a website, for free. You can throw in your data and get a lot of feedback. I think that's great, and that's just a wonderful result and hint. So thank you for that.
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing this experience. And what I heard from most of your feedback right now is that these are tools that are good for maybe a first insight, but maybe not adequate in order to really use it as data analysis tool for a specific research project. That's true. So because those tools are, I mean, one of the main goal is to better kind of listen to your data that is aiming to talking to you. So to better grasp an understanding of what is inside your data. And if maybe to have an inspiration of with what kind of analysis or visualization you want to move on into a presentation or a research project. And here, of course, again, if you really want to dig deeper and better count and prepare the data, then you might not kind of come around. Then you might have to use an additional tool like R, Python, SPSS, and so on, that also helps you to really get the whole data you have in one software, in one tool, in order to properly analyze it so that you can also kind of publish it. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, for that, if you don't want to first start and learn R and have this deep learning course of programming language, then those tools are a first good hint or a first good start to put your data in and see. And yeah, the second point I wanted to mention is also a very important point. I mentioned it before. For some tools, it really helps to clean your data and prepare your data before you upload it. I mean, in some tools, you also can choose what kind of words are counted, are collected, but it of course helps if you kind of clean and prepare your data before you upload it, so that you don't have those. In the machine learning context, it's also called sometimes stop words. Stopping words, for instance, in the most cases of texts, for instance, words like and, the are the most often used words, but they of course are not the words that you are interested in your research. So in the sophisticated tools R and Python, you can define what kind of words shouldn't be counted. And in some of the tools, they have automatically programmed words that are not counted. Okay, I think I see another hand, Vladas. I think afterwards, this should be the last question. If you have some more questions, of course, write it in the chat or contact me afterwards. I'll give you the contact details later. So I think this is the last sharing.
It's not a question. I just checked the communication analysis tool. It seems to be really interesting, but I'm not sure that I have completely understood what it does. That's why I wanted to share it with you, if you can tell me more.
So as far as I know, the tool does what all, for instance, Interact or Mango does. So you upload or you enter a video file you want to analyze, and then you can code specific behaviors or speeches that the person say or that the people do. So that's kind of a tool in order to count behavior, but videos are the basic and not texts. So if you are maybe more familiar with text and qualitative content analysis, then the communication analysis tool and all the other video analysis tools are doing similar stuff as MaxQDA does with your text, like counting phrases, coding specific things in categories. And those CAT and video tools are doing the same, just with videos as the basis, where you can, where it maybe makes more sense to code behavior or specific negotiation behavior in order to get a better understanding on how people communicate, for instance, in virtual environments to each other. Okay. Did that help?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the workshop and also the short opportunity to exercise some of the tools and to exchange. So what I just brought along for the wrap up and the checkout of the workshop. So what to do if within all those many tools I presented to you, there wasn't the right tool yet that you might need to answer the research question you have and the data you have. There is one tool that is called the tool finder, Tapor 3. So this is a very large collection of currently 1,590 tools, mainly digital tools. And you can, if you go to this website, you can, for instance, filter and search for specific data you have, for instance, video data, text data, corpus data, and then this tool finder can help you to find a listed overview of what kind of tools exist in order to analyze your data. Or for instance, if you just want to have a tool to analyze Twitter data or just for visualization, that Tapor tool finder might help you to find the right tool for data analysis. If you have to get the step earlier, and if you have not found the right data set yet, I mean, of course, you can collect the data on your own, which would be the primary data part, but also maybe you are interested in more secondary data. Then here in Thuringia, but I guess in also many other university libraries worldwide, university libraries have many hidden treasures in terms of archives, databases, and so on, which is just worth asking for. So in many cases, especially also here, the TULP, so the Thuringian University Library, has many digital archives that also I wasn't aware of that broad range of archives, but the people, the employees who work there are in general very helpful, and they support you as researchers and students to find the right data set you use. For some research questions, also a data set search by Google might help. So there is a website that is called Dataset Search from Google. So it is kind of like Google for data sets. Maybe one of the tricky things is that sometimes you need a Google account to download the data sets, or you have to register to download the data sets, but to search for the data set is for free and without login. So you can maybe look up, if you look for a specific data set, just look it up and maybe you're lucky and find something you're interested in, and then it might be worth to log in or to register in order to download the data set. Of course, there are many other discipline-specific research databases that can be searched, but also so here at the University of Jena, it is called the Contact Point for Research Data Management. They also have a lot of knowledge and expertise in finding the right data, analyzing data, but also how to store your data in order to do proper research data management. And there are here at the university many workshops, I think also at other universities or online courses on the topic of digital data literacy in general. So on the humanities, but also in other fields of disciplines. And that's also the end of the workshop. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoy the rest of the ReDICo conference. I brought you along on the right slide an interesting a graph on what visualization can do. Sometimes it is a perfectly pie chart, but it also transports along another kind of information. So I hope everybody of you can see the pyramid here with the sunny and the shady side of the pyramid. So of course, I wish you lots of success with your research data projects. And in case you have questions about tools or interested in to get to know more, then feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.